Hey guys, just wanted to give a quick update on some national news as well as some local news. Nationally, for the very first time in America's history, there is a city that is declaring bankruptcy. That city, if you haven't heard, is Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan, over the course of about 40 years, they just had a string of malinvestment after malinvestment. They owe, I think, the last I heard was 100,000 lenders, about $20 billion. And so they've declared bankruptcy, and they're going through the proceedings right now as we speak. So it actually encouraged me to see how far off is Campbellsville, Kentucky to that of Detroit, Michigan, because that'll tell you a pretty good benchmark where we are and where we need to be. So the first part of this video is going to be a little bit of statistics, but I promise if you can suffer through the statistics, they really lay the foundation and lay out the context for the rest of what I'm going to say today. So Campbellsville's employment rate is 42.7%. Compare that to Detroit, Michigan's employment rate of 41.1%. Detroit, Michigan's percentage of household income that is $25,000 or less is 44.8%. Campbellsville, Kentucky's percentage of household income of $25,000 and less is 52.2%. Campbellsville, Kentucky's percentage of people who are under the poverty level is a staggering 37.9%. Compare that to Detroit, Michigan's percentage, which is 34.5%. The percentage of Detroit, Michigan that has either completed high school or did not complete high school as their highest form of education, highest level of education, is 56.83%. Compare that to Campbellsville, Kentucky, of 67%. The resemblances really are uncanny. And see, when I look at Campbellsville's economic landscape, I see a lot of things that are said to have, quote, good energy behind them. However, just good energy is not synonymous with profitability. It's not synonymous with sustainability. Some things that have been proposed and more likely have already been passed if they haven't already are walking tracks, bike trails, a huge sports complex behind the Amazon building. Will any of that have a significant impact on our economy? That is the question. And unfortunately, I don't think so. Now, I'm not saying that certain seasons during the year that the sports complex or even the bike trails will not have some impact on the economy. It absolutely will. It's inevitable, if it's run properly, that it will have some impact on the economy. The unfortunate thing is that both of these items will be limited based on the time of year concerning the amount of money that they could potentially generate. For example, I'm not really a bike rider, but I don't really see a whole lot of people riding bikes in the dead of winter. And baseball and other outdoor sports generally are not played in the cool of the year. The winter and early spring. Well, I guess early spring, but the dead of the winter, there's not much going on outside as far as sports is concerned. Again, I never said that they would not have an economic impact on the city. But at what cost will we achieve these impacts? See, my vision of an investment is what I call the penny for a dime. I'm going to invest a penny, but I want a dime back. And I think what we're doing as a city here is we're investing a dime and we're getting a penny back. So I'm never in favor of stealing money from the private sector. I'm also not in favor of stealing money from the private sector and then investing that stolen money in something that will not yield a significant return or no return at all. Although a sports complex and bike trails and trail towns and libraries and walking tracks and all the cool hip things sound really nice, but it's not that kind of infrastructure that needs to take place for this city to have a thriving economy. All of that stuff is just prolonging the problem. The solution to the problem isn't that we need to borrow and buy more stuff. We don't need more stuff. The solution rests in answering, what kind of stuff do we need? See, what we are trending towards is more and more debt, and due to some people's desire for fiscal stimulus. This happens when we borrow and we spend money. They ask themselves, why not borrow and spend more money on a sports complex? Or let's try to find a place where we could build a bridge, and the list goes on and on and on for different projects. They say that government isn't really creating jobs, but who bought the land? Who determines what goes on the property? Who owns the property? See, every decision made like this by the government diminishes the middle class by taking money from the private sector. I don't blame our city for what's going on in Washington, D.C. with the Federal Reserve printing more money. They debase the currency and they keep interest rates way too low. And I'm not going to get all into the intricacies of all of that. But we are actually seeing the effects of a horrible monetary policy from the federal level, and it trickles all the way down to the local level. But I'm of the persuasion that if we don't know what is going on, but if we know what's going on, and we know the cause of the cancer, then the solutions are simple. They'll just present themselves. You see, currently more people are investing in long-term projects, believing that they're going to save more money and can afford these high-dollar projects in the long run. I don't blame them for thinking this way, because I believe that we have been duped into believing the market is saying jump when it is really saying swim. We saw this in 2008 when the stock market crashed and the housing markets just, the bottom fell out of them. Both were predicted by a very small minority of people that were dubbed doom and gloom by the mainstream. But you watch. As once rising interest rates start to kick in, these long-term projects will become unfinished and unpaid developments. This all happens when things are arranged wrongly within an economy. For example, if the consumers want bread, but the government steps in and gives everybody a computer, though very nice and probably money-wise might actually cost more than bread, but when it's not demanded by the consumers, there is a miscommunication between the producers and the consumers. And just spending more money and pumping money through the system, it won't arrange them properly. In fact, they arrange things even more wrongly than they had originated, because now we have these politically driven projects being undertaken. If we are going to recover from this local recession, we have to allow the consumers to tell the producers what they want. And the way to figure that out is to bring in as much economic life under economic calculation as we possibly can. Stated differently, that means as little government spending as we can possibly get away with. We need to repeal the burdensome business regulations. We need to give tax credits to small startup businesses. We need to give incentives for businesses to locate here. Not just corporations, but smaller businesses as well. And we need to cut taxes so that more money is in the hands of the creative producers and the intellectual consumers. This is how we're going to get out of our local economic recession. And for those that don't really believe that we're in a recession locally, I invite you to look back in 2008 when the unemployment rate was 10%. Now, this is based on the national definition of a recession. Unemployment rates shot up to 10%. Here in Campbellsville, they're at 15%, and that's a conservative estimate. The housing market, the bottom fell out of the housing market. And I look here, and there's 132 houses that are on the market, and only 8 are being sold. Or not 8 are being sold, 10 are being sold. That's less than 8% of the houses that get put on the market actually get sold. And we start to see a higher influx of welfare and government benefits. So to say that we're not in a local recession, I think that the facts suggest that we are. But the good news is that we in Campbellsville live in a town that or in a city that has a tourist attraction at Green River Lake State Park, and we've got a college here in Campbellsville University. The potential for this city is great, but we have to call a spade sometimes, and we need to address the local economic infrastructure, not addressing parks and sports complexes and bike trails and walking trails and that kind of thing. We need to really take a strong, hard look at the economic infrastructure, and that means cutting business regulations, cutting taxes, giving tax credits and incentives to small startup businesses, not just the corporations. So anyway, hope you guys have a great weekend. This has been Ellard, signing out.